Hi, I'm Brian Wallace with Reno Bicycles in Reno, Nevada. We're going to walk you through going through your bike to prep it for your race day event. One of the best things you can actually do to get ready for your race is to ensure you have a good working relationship with your local shop. Many times things can creep up right before you expect it, and you need to have that relationship so you could drop the bike off with maybe only 2 to 3 days notice and get it turned around in time for your actual event. If you're confident in the way your bike is handling currently, you can walk through the bike yourself to ensure you're prepped for that day. And to do so, it is always recommended to work from the front of the bike to the back, so that way you don't really miss anything as you prepare for your race. If you're going to ride your normal everyday wheels, you'll want to inspect the tires that you have on there. The best thing you do is take a rag and slowly just run the tire through it. Clean it completely off. Look for any nicks, any place where glass maybe has embedded itself. And you'll notice little spots here and there that may need some further inspection. If you need to, go ahead and drop the wheel out, pull the tire apart, pull the tube out, check the inside of the tire to ensure nothing has actually punctured the belt on the inside. If you have race day wheels and you're putting those on, what you want to check and ensure is that the brake pads still align on the brake track of your race wheels. Even on your everyday wheels, this is something to check because over time, the pad carriers can shift just a little bit where they may ride up or ride down on the brake track. Especially if they ride up, they have a tendency to start to wear the sidewall of the tire, and that would be noticeable. Just take the lever, squeeze it a couple times, make sure the pads are aligned on the brake track on both sides. As you do that, you'll also want to make sure, especially if you've changed wheels to your race wheels, that the wheel is fully seated inside of the fork and that the lever is closed tight and points back toward the rider. This helps ensure that the skewer itself won't get clipped by another rider and that everything is safe and secure. Again, just pull the lever, double check, and you'll also be able to tell if both pads contact your rim at about the same time. If they're not, depending upon your braking system, you may be able to just take your hands and slightly shift the caliper itself. Or if you're running something like Campy or Ceram, you may actually have to get the right size wrench to make sure that is centered. This is exactly why you may need to run your bike back by your favorite shop to have those small adjustments made, especially if you're using only race day wheels. Once you're good and happy with the front, you just want to shift to the rear wheel and start the same process all over again. Just take your rag once again, run it through. The rag will catch on anything you may feel. You can also visually inspect the tire as you go through it to ensure there's nothing that is protruding, it's not worn, no broken threads, and the belt is completely intact. Do the same thing for the rear wheel you did for the front. Go ahead and grab the lever. Inspect both sides, ensure the brake pads are striking where they need to, and that both pads strike at approximately the same time when you're taking a peek there. Once you're happy with both wheels, you're ready to start on the drivetrain. Again, work your way from the front to the back. Take a look at both cables, ensure nothing's frayed, that it's clamped securely at this point, and then you have pretty good tension there. That's one of the first things you can just look and see, especially on a front derailleur. If it doesn't feel quite like a guitar string, you know you're probably going to need to tension that. Front derailleurs can also be the most problematic, and it's another reason why visiting your shop or even taking a class through like REI or your local shop is a really good starting point if you're learning how to do bike maintenance on your own. If you have a cable that happens to be frayed like this one, that's a good time to either get a new cable or go into your shop and have them install it for you. Something like this, you really want to get done almost 2 weeks prior to your event because these cables are prone to stretch. And as it begins to stretch, your shifting will get sloppy and you'll feel it in the lever where it won't shift up nice and clean, especially if you're running one of the higher end components like Red, Dura-Ace, or Campy Record. Once you know both cables are in pretty good shape, go ahead, grab the pedal, start pedaling, and shift up. For most front derailleur systems, they'll shift right up on the first pull without a problem. And what you want to do is shift all the way down in the rear. And you can check this clearance right here. Make sure nothing's rubbing, that you feel it's nice and smooth. And then just shift through the rear. And ensure everything feels good on that end. Shift down a couple, and then shift out of the front. And then go ahead, shift up to the top. As you begin to play with the system, you'll notice that your rear may or may not be shifting properly at that time. You may have a little bit of cable stretch. Most of the time it doesn't require actually having to undo the pinch bolt and actually retensioning the cable, but actually just giving the barrel adjuster maybe a twist or two. While you have it up on the largest cog in the rear and the smallest cog in the front, you want to check the clearance between the chain and the front derailleur cage at this point. As you can hear this one, it runs very nice and smooth. It's not rubbing against the cage at all, so it's exactly where it should be. And you want to run right back through the rear system once again in the small ring. Just continue to shift down, one click at a time. It should continue to drop and feel nice and smooth. And then shifting up, you should feel that nice and smooth movement. And it should almost feel like butter. The saying is it buttery smooth? If it is, you know your system is clean all the way through the whole bike. If your bike hasn't been in, maybe for a year or two for new cables and housing, and you feel any drag in the system where it kind of is sticking, this is another good time to make sure you're in 2, even 3 weeks prior to your event to get cables and housing. That way everything has enough time to settle, and you know cables are stretching time before your big event. You'll want to run through this just a couple times just to feel good about the whole system, including shifting up a few times, shifting down a few, and then kind of a harder shift back up as much as you can. You want to make sure the chain isn't going to come over the top of the cog and drop onto your crank arm at all, and especially shifting down under load, like if you're going to start a climb, we want to make sure it's not going to spit the chain to the inside of the bike and drop against your chain or against your frame at that point. Once you run through that a couple of times, you want to just go ahead and stop the system, leave it on the inner ring and about the third cog from the smallest up. This aligns the chain almost perfectly all the way through, and you'll be able to see that it looks like almost a straight line, and this is a good time to go ahead and lube your chain. Everyone has their own personal opinions when it comes to lube. You'll find shops that will have Tri-Flow, they'll have WD-40, they will have T9, they'll have a variety of lubes to choose from. Ask your local mechanic which one do they really prefer, especially if it's road or mountain bike. They will always have something to point you towards, and that's the one you'll probably want to favor. You may have your own favorite lube. As long as you have something to place on the chain to help quiet the system down, and also cuts down the amount of friction you have there. While pedaling the bike forward, just very lightly spray the chain. The rule of thumb is usually about 3 revolutions, so 1, 2, and 3. And then shift back through the system once again. Just to go ahead and get a very light layer of lube on the whole system at this point and quiet it down all the way through. Go ahead and stop the rear wheel at this time, and then just very lightly take a rag, pedal backwards, clean all the excess off. One of the places you really want to check as you clean the drivetrain are right down here on the pulleys. They have a tendency to gum up a little bit, especially if you have a tendency to use a little wetter lube. you can just take a flathead screwdriver or your rag, place it against that pulley, very carefully just clean that side off, come back to the back side of it, clean that side off, and then repeat for the other pulley. They do gum up in those areas, so a lot of times if you're having problems continuing to tune your bike, it may just be the pulley has enough dirt on it, the chain won't set correctly on there. Once you've wiped most of the excess lube off, you're set and ready to go. You'll have a little bit of overspray, so you want to make sure you continue to clean the derailleur off at that point, clean your chain stain back off, because one of the best things you can do is arrive at the race knowing that your bike is clean, it's tuned, and it's ready to go. As you continue to prepare for your race day prep, if you're traveling to it with a buddy, make sure one of you within the car, you have a floor pump. Nothing will affect your race quicker than having to look for a floor pump, because you know you need to double check that tire pressure. And everyone has a personal preference for that. General rule, about 100 PSI is good for tire pressure. Depends on the event, depends on the course, depends on the person. 100 PSI usually gets you going. Make sure too that if it's a longer event that you have your saddle bag. And then within that saddle bag, you've got an extra tube, maybe even 2 tubes. You have extra CO2s. And if you're doing something like the triple bypass, or you're doing one of the local longer rides, even with the group, having a pump on the bike is also another item to have. You can find a variety of pumps at any bike shop that fits right behind the bottle cages, and those are great as a backup plan because CO2s are one and you're done at that point. If you're using race day wheels, as we showed you with the front, we want to make sure that the wheels are actually set and ready to go in the dropouts. So double check, retighten that skewer, and it's really quick once you've pulled it out of a car or off the roof rack. Just spin that wheel back through while looking down at it, squeeze that brake lever, good to go on the front. Same thing in the rear, wheel is set inside the dropouts. Give it a good spin like so, grab the lever and double check, and at this point you should be ready to go race your bike.